Thank you. This is the DBeaver webinar on what's new in DBeaver 25.3. It's January 2026, and thank you for joining us. We've had a lot of people register for this, and we hope you get what you want out of this. Now, happy 2026 if someone hasn't wished you a happy 2026 previously to this. 2025 was a great year for DBeaver. We're hoping to do even better in 2026. It's an exciting product, and today we're talking about what's new in the Community Edition, version 25.3.3. This is our agenda for today. We're going to do a little bit of a welcome and introduction. Then we're on to AI assistance and safe execution controls. This is really helpful and keeps you from doing harmful things to your data. We've done some UI improvements and done some icon redesign so that the interface has a cleaner look and a neater look. It's easier to scan. We're also going to talk about migration, importing connections from other tools. You might be using another tool to talk to the database and prefer DBeaver. This is a way to go out and collect the information on the connection, and JDBC connections can be kind of crazy at times. This lets you take a known collection and move it over to DBeaver. We're going to talk about some changes in connectivity, drivers, and database support. Then we're going to do a quick wrap-up, and then we're going to have Q&A. Once again, if you have a question, please put it into the chat. I will try to answer everything in the Q&A time period at the end of this. If we run long and we don't get to your question, we will note it down and get back to you to answer your question. And we're here to answer any question you have about any DBeaver product. We're mainly talking about Community Edition 25.3.3, but any other question you have, please let us have it. Okay, introduction. Most of you here are here because you know DBeaver and probably use it and love it already. This is a really fun product to be a community manager for. By the way, my name is Dave Stokes. I am the community manager for DBeaver. And this is a really interesting product because when I go to a show, people keep coming up and telling me how much they love DBeaver. Other jobs in the past, I've always got more complaints than roses. So for those of you who don't know DBeaver, what is it? Well, DBeaver is a universal database management tool, and today we're talking about the Community Edition. Now, the Community Edition is usually designed for single users, developers, DBA analysts, anyone who regularly uses databases. And if you're touching data for more than a couple minutes a day, you definitely want to use DBeaver. By the way, the Community Edition is free and open source. By free, I mean we don't charge you to download or use it. There's no fee, license, surcharge, or anything like that. And it is open source. So if you're curious about any of this, how we do stuff, you can go out to GitHub and download the code and examine it and modify it. And if you do make modifications, we gladly accept them. By the way, DBeaver supports over 100 relational databases. And also, if you have a database that has a JDBC connector, a Java database connector, we can talk to it. Now, it's multi-platform in that it runs on Windows, Macs, and Linux. If you're running Linux, your repo might already have a RPM or deb or similar package for it, Flatpak, whatever. Mac, use the brew install, and Windows, we have a wonderful installer. Now, DBeaver, as I said, is a universal database management tool. What does that mean? Well, primarily, you're probably going to use it as an SQL editor. It has syntax highlighting, and it will do smart code completion. It has a data editor, so as you're working with data and you find something you have to clean up or revise, very easy point and click to do that. Data transfer, you can move stuff from one database or another. Very handy if you have CSV files from a spreadsheet or something similar and you want to import it, makes it very easily. Administrative tools for your database. So if you need to do backups, we handle you there. And also we have some AI power tools that you'll see a demo of later that are very, very handy. And I think we're going to find that AI is going to be more like an IDE extension in the future than what we see now. Oh, by the way, I put the splash page here from 2532 just to show some of the artistry that unfortunately was short-lived, but I wanted people to see how just I thought this was visually stunning. Nice little fortune cookie. So, what is new in the DBeaver Community Edition? Well, we've made a lot of improvements. I'm going to highlight some of them here. The, the, the idea was to give you better usability, improve the AI tools, and over the past few months, you've seen that we've done a lot of work, and it really helps you out. We have better support for common table expressions, or CTEs. If you're new to SQL, CTEs are an easier way to write subqueries, easier to read, easier to compose, easier to reference, and they're not as logically crazy as it's like an uncorrelated subquery. Uh, and we've improved our support for that. The data editor has an option to order your data by primary key. Those of you who are in the MySQL world will be shocked to find out that data isn't stored by the primary key in other databases. And if you're using something where the data is written in the order that it's received, this might help you look at the data and figure out what's going on. Now, the AI assistant in the Community Edition supports OpenAI and GitHub Copilot, two very powerful LLMs, and very handy for helping you write queries and interrogate your data. Now, something we've added that I'm going to feature later is query preview and confirmation before any action is taken. We want you in control of your data as much as you do. And this makes it much harder to shoot yourself in the foot when you're doing something that the AI misinterprets and does something dumb. Matter of fact, when I first started using this tool, I thought I was using what I thought was a materialized view. I asked the AI to remove the folks who weren't in a certain category, and I thought it was just moving from that view. No, it was doing it from the entire database, restore time. Also, we're going to go over how to import a connection from DataGrip or another tool. And if you would like to see the release notes, we have them out at dbeaver.io.category.releases. They're very simple. As you can see here, here's the one for 25.3.3, gives the highlights. By the way, if you're interested in the Pro versions, we have these LLMs available. So whether you're self-hosting with Olama or using other LLMs, you have a few more choices with the community version. Okay, AI assistance and safe execution controls. This is becoming a growing area for us. Now, for those of you who have used our AI assistant before, the first preference screen hasn't really changed. You pick your engine, you get your post in your token, what model you want to use, and go from there. Now, what we have added over here are AI queries execution. A select statement doesn't modify the data, so it's safe to execute it immediately. But if you're modifying data or you're modifying a schema, we'll ask for a confirmation just to say you realize that you do something that could be destructive. And down here in other, if your database has something that's no SQL-ish or not strict SQL standard, it will also ask you to confirm that. So you're going to double check before performing anything that could be dangerous. Make sure that that insert, update, delete, or that create or drop statement, alter or drop statement, does exactly what you intend. Now, here's an example. We send a command through the AI by typing in @AI, and we want to find out who the top 5 customers are in each region. Now, I'm using the DBeaver sample database, which is SQLite. Comes with DBeaver optional install. Now, this is not part of the new stuff. This is part of the stuff that's been there for a while. Before you send data over to an AI, whether it's self-hosted or out on the web, it's going to say, hey, do you really want to share this information with the LLM? Maybe you have IP concerns or privacy concerns or security concerns, and you didn't mean to do this. This lets you back out of that gracefully. But we're going to pretend now that we want to actually send it over to LLM. So we put in our query, it executes, and it comes back with the information. And we also, over here, get the SQL. So if you want to save this query in a script, you can do that. And by the way, yes, it did ignore me fat fingering top as TOOP. So AIs can make up for fat fingering like I do. Now, the command confirmation that I mentioned, you're in control, not the AI. You're the one responsible for your data. And if you want to keep the AI from doing something that you may not want, what we do is we ask you to double check before performing any task that could be disastrous to your data. And in this case, we're going to ask update all the countries in the customer table to XYZ. Now, longtime SQL fans will realize this doesn't have a where clause on it, so it's going to go through every customer entry, every row, and change the country to XYZ. Probably not what you want to do. So we have this warning, execute dangerous queries. You're about to update without a where clause. Are you sure? And by the way, we also let you see the SQL. So if you're more SQL oriented than the text warning, you get to see exactly what's going to go on. And once again, you have control of your data. User interface improvements. Now, comparing 25.2.0 and 25.3.3, our latest, when you first start it up, you'll really not see any difference other than the version number and the release dates. And if you fire up the the SQL editor and start looking at the data, you're going to see that in 25.2.0, it looks pretty much like it does in the latest version, but we've made a subtle change for a readability issue. In the older version, we have these icons for edit, add a row, duplicate a row, or subtract a row. Big discussions internally about how do we make this more understandable. So we've added new icons, and you'll see new icons throughout the application. Edit remains the same, but Plus now has that highlighted green, green go, the duplication here, and a red X for delete. A little easier, more intuitive, and it doesn't blend in as much as it does up here. Now, we've also gone through and cleaned up the visual hierarchies to make things easier to read, easier to scan, easier to view. Part of this is we're trying to make it easier for you to work with your data. So it's not as much eye strain when you're scanning over the screen to get what you want. And we use the Eclipse IDE as the basis of the software, and this is actually an amazing feat by our wonderful developers. By the way, if you like the dark mode, this gives a much more consistent interface between the two. Now, here comes a hint on what's going to happen in the next releases, the 20.26.x series. Our preference screens are a little cluttered and counterintuitive in some places. That's going to be our next redesign. Okay, migration. Now, we're not talking about migration between different databases. We're actually talking about if you're using a tool like DataGrip, JetBrains, not listed here is MySQL Workbench, Toad, and you have a good connection, but you want to use the power of DBeaver instead of these tools. It's very easy to import the settings from one from another. Now, this is an example using JetBrains. And real simple. It's going to take me more time to talk about it than it actually takes to actually do it. Open up the file menu, select import. You want to take a third-party configuration. And in this case, I'm using one from JetBrains. It will ask you where the configuration file is. And in this case, it's under DataGrip projects, and I have a configuration for MySQL database called Sakila Local. I click on that, and it comes up and says, this is Sakila at local. It's a MySQL driver. Here's my connection string. And when I'm happy with that, I click on that box and hit finish. And in a very short order, it comes back and says that I now have Sakila at localhost under DBeaver. And once again, I can confirm my URL for the connection string and the actual username. Very handy, very fast, very neat. So if you have another tool you're not happy with, please try this migration tool. Okay, connectivity, drivers, and database support. As you're probably aware, databases are constantly evolving and changing. So we're always updating drivers. And in this release, big changes in Postgres, Redshift, Snowflake, SQL Server, ClickHouse, and Yellowbrick. We've also added support for GreenGauge DB, which is kind of an open source version of Greenplum for folks who want to do very, very, very large data sets, data lakes, data oceans. Also, we have support for Databricks, OSS, the open version of it. We've added auth2 support for Yellowbrick, and we've done numerous other little driver updates. Those driver updates you can see down below for those databases. So we're constantly working to make sure the connections are stable, good, and up to date for the latest releases of the databases. Well, now we're going to go into the wrap up, and we've gone through some of the stuff and the features in the 25.x series. We have more on the way releases coming in 2026. We've made a cleaner display in the editors, and we've improved the object panel layouts. The stuff is real subtle, but the readability is there. And we've redesigned the icons to make it more intuitive. And the way to look at your data is much easier. It's cleaner. You can scan things faster. It doesn't catch the eye on a lot of necessary graphics. You get an easier distinction of object types. And for the folks who like dark mode and really love dark mode from the comments I see, the style is much more consistent between the two. So now, just a minute or two early, want to go into questions and answers. And some of my colleagues have already been working on some of these. And let's see. Is it just me, or does DBeaver I get overwritten with each upgrade? I keep losing settings for XMS. Yes. Part of the interesting of the environment of the Eclipse world is that these upgrades force us to rewrite stuff, and it's painful and it's messy, and we're looking for suggestions for better ways to do things, but it is a mess. And Douglas, we feel your pain. It's just kind of the nature of the beast, and we're we're looking for a way to do it, but there's really no easy way to do that because Eclipse changes so much. It's hard to keep the data concurrent. And thank you, Jan, for giving a much clearer explanation of that. And Shaiju, DBeaver CE or the DBeaver editions, Pro EE, our credentials or connections data are saved in any centralized files. Just checking the data privacy. If you go under your DBeaver directory, you'll find out where the credentials are. They are encrypted, and Anton sent out a nice little link for project security where you can read how that is done. And he says, and by default, usernames and passwords are not stored in the credential and config JSON. They're encrypted with a DES key. And he has a link to that on there. Shaiju also asked, does DBeaver possess any capabilities that could potentially replace AWS DMS service with DBeaver tool? That I think I'd have to leave off to the Cloud Beaver folks. We have a cloud tool that is very interesting and very exciting. I'm not quite sure what the migration service tools that we have versus what AWS have do and the differences. I'm sure someone will get back to you on that, Shaiju. Okay, can this software edit and access tables in MS Access without having to open them to make changes? And we have a link for data migration. So the answer is yes. Another way to do that is take your access information, dump it to a CSV and pull it in, but I'm sure the migration tool has a better way of doing stuff. Okay, do we have any other questions or concerns or comments? We're here to answer you. We have a whole bunch of very talented people from our side waiting to go. DBeaver relies on the database's metadata to display objects on the navigator, so no actual data is read in the process unless you open it to view a table. That's from Jan. And I had an issue with porting data from DB2 on-prem to Postgres AWS Aurora. It ran painfully slow. It was like there was a governor on the data transfer. Depending on the size of the database, it could take quite a while to do that. I'm not sure if we're supporting multi-threading on that or not. And it's a thing where that sort of work is unfortunately painfully slow. One thing I might have tried is gone from DB2 on-prem to Postgres on-prem and then up to AWS. How does the software behave with older DBs? Depends on how old you want to go. I've used it with MySQL 5.5. I've used it with old versions of Postgres. Your mileage may vary, but each database, if we have a connector for it and it supports that connection, you should be good to go. Okay, another David. Welcome, David. I've been using DBeaver for some time, love the tool. I think I am my company's evangelist. Well, thank you, David, for doing that. It's amazing how many folks bring in DBeaver and show it to their colleagues, and suddenly they're signing up for a subscription. And Olga says, thank you. Can we get a recording of this webinar? I should have mentioned that earlier. Yes, a recording of this webinar will be made available, and we'll send you out the information to connect up with that. Once again, if you have questions that we haven't answered, please put them in the chat or contact me, david.stokes@dbeaver.com, or open a trouble ticket or contact your local sales folks and we'll get to it. And Douglas has been a DBeaver cheerleader too. He's got an entire team using it. It's much easier than the native tools. One of the great things about DBeaver is that if you're working with more than one database and you're trying to remember what the equivalent is in /x in MySQL or Maria, you don't have to worry about that. It's all the same interface. You've got a consistent interface no matter what database you're going to. You don't have to worry about the intricacies of the MySQL shell or PSQL or the funkiness that is Toad. Okay, last call for question observation from David again. When I use parameters in a query and execute them in the SQ, normally I am prompted to enter, verify the value, and then click on the export from the bottom of the result table. However, right-click on the query from the execute submenu, select imports. I am not prompted for the parameter. I haven't played with the right-click on that. There are ways to get the menu where it would save that value, but I'm not quite sure on the right-click. Something we'll have to test and try. Oh, and Anton put out a link for porting data performance settings. Okay, folks, just a little bit more, and let's go on to. If you don't know DBeaver's offerings, by the way, you can get a free 2-week trial on any of our Pro editions. And by the way, that's not 2 weeks total for any of them. It's 2 weeks on Lite, 2 weeks on Enterprise, 2 weeks on Team, 2 weeks on Ultimate, 2 weeks on Cloud Beaver. We've been talking today about the open source free edition. It has all the basics, and we recommend this for simple projects and homework. And once you start dealing with data on a regular basis, you want to investigate using these other options. And once again, free 2-week trial. The cost is not exorbitant. We're not going to cost you the proverbial arm and leg. We have a fairly low price compared to a lot of other options out there for your data tools. And Stacy just put in my LinkedIn out there. Please contact me if you have questions, or my email, david.stokes@dbeaver.com. And with that, I want to thank you and thank my colleagues for being here. Last chance for any questions that you may have. And with that, I want to thank you all for coming. Once again, David's expert. That expert issue is with CE and occurs even in 25.3. Okay, I will have to investigate that. Now, thank you, folks. We will send a follow-up where you can get a copy of this recording. And we want to thank you very much for joining us today.